Don't be scared.
The Skin Runner by Edward Jones. My name is Edward Jones. I'm from Abilene, Texas. It's a big town, and I have never heard of skinwalkers or wendigos in this area. I have lived here since I was 15, and I am 21 now. I used to be a bad child when I was younger and would always be getting in trouble. When I was 16, me and my brothers wanted to gather up a few friends and go down to the creek behind a Dollar General in my part of town that's called the Four-Way. That day, I had went to Academy and stole a CO2 airsoft revolver to take with us. Like I said, I was a bad kid. When it got dark, me and my brothers and a few of our friends, who I will keep anonymous for their sake, left the house and started heading to the creek. We were all joking around and laughing about things that we have done in the past, and as we got there, there's a tunnel that drains water all the way underneath the city with a drainage corral that leads to the creek. As we were there, walking alongside, I was shining my flashlight around looking to see what all was there because of homeless people that like to camp at the end. We got closer to the end and I shined my light of a figure. We got closer to the end and I shined my light on a figure that looked like a person that was crouched down and was eating something. When the light hit the creature, it stood up and was really, really tall, pale, white, and really skinny. It looked at us and its eyes reflected off my flashlight, making them glow yellow, and it took off running into the woods faster than It looked at us and its eyes reflected off my flashlight, making them glow yellow, and it took off running into the woods faster than anything I had ever seen. We all got really spooked and turned around and ran back up to the main road where the houses were, which was about 250 yards away, not too far from the tree line. To this day, I have seen things that I can't explain, from UFOs to weird noises in the sky that you can't see, even with it being a non-cloudy day. I listen to stories every night when I go to sleep because it helps me sleep and to maybe shine some light on what me and my brothers saw. I've heard countless other stories from friends about seeing dog-like creatures that can walk on their hind legs and eat cattle. I know what I saw, and to this day I have not stepped foot in that area since. I will post more stories about things that I saw, and I can't wait to hear my story. If anyone has any questions, please reach out to me. Thank you. What If It Got Me? By Vasquez M. 27. Hi, I am here to tell my story for the sake of privacy. All of the names in this story will be fake. Now let's begin. 3 years ago, me and my friend, let's call him Tom, decided to go on a camping trip. We got a week off for Christmas, and I wanted to go camping for a while, but Tom had other ideas, so I had to bribe him with buying him this new knife that he wanted. After we got the knife, we set out on the trip. When we got there, it was beautiful. The trees were bright shades of green, and the sky was clear, except for a couple of clouds. The sun was setting, and I set out to get firewood while Tom set up the tent. After a while, I got a lot of firewood that should last through the night, and maybe even some tomorrow. While I was heading back, I heard a twig snap. I looked under me, but nothing was there. I looked around to see a tall figure go behind the tree, but that wasn't even the oddest part. I saw it had hoofed feet. I panicked, running back to camp, dropping some of the firewood. Once I got back to camp, I told Tom what happened, and he didn't believe me, so he said, "Stop being a wuss, you probably just saw a deer." So we went back to doing our business and then roasted some s'mores. Then we went into the tent to sleep. After a while, I woke up to the sound of hooves, and then I smelled a smell of death and decay. Tom woke up and said, "What smell?" I quickly covered his mouth, but too late. The noise stopped, and then we heard whatever it was scurrying into the woods. We went out to check, but all there was hoof prints. My friend played it off as a wild horse when we both know that there are none out there. I begged him to leave, but he said no. But after hearing my complaining, he agreed to take shifts. At first, I read a book to stay awake, but eventually I drifted off to sleep. I woke up to Tom screaming, running at me, and then I realized he was running after me. I was being dragged. I looked up to see an 8-foot crazy creature with pale gray skin. The thing was so skinny I could see bone poking out of its skin, and it was wearing a deer mask. Soon Tom caught up to us and stabbed the thing with his new knife. Then it all went black. I woke up in the hospital, my head sore, to see my family, Tom, and a doctor sitting next to me. I asked what happened. The doctor said, "You fell down a hill and hit your head on a rock. You're lucky your friend here found you." I looked at Tom and I knew he lied, but I didn't say anything. I was soon discharged and sent home. The next time I saw him, I asked him why he lied. He said, "Well, no one would have believed us in any way, and I prefer not to even talk about it." I searched up what I saw. It was most likely a wendigo or a skinwalker. I know I won't be camping anytime soon, and over time, Tom and I grew apart. He now denies it even ever happened. You can choose to believe me or not, but heed my warning. Do not go into the woods unarmed. Now, all I can think about is, what if it got me?
Hellhounds by Jen5445. Late one night, a friend and myself were out driving around, looking for creepy places and trying to scare ourselves. We did this quite often. She was driving a brand new car and we were both smokers at the time. Not wanting to smoke in the car, we had pulled over on the side of the road. We were out in the country, so there were no streetlights and houses with few and very far between. We both had to pee as well, so she stood at the front of the car and myself at the back. We took our time smoking our cigarettes and then got back into the car. No sooner had we shut the doors, there were at least half a dozen very large black dogs surrounding the car. They were barking and snarling, looking in the windows, and when the light hit their eyes, they shone red. They were big enough to not have to stand on hind legs to see in the window. We were terrified. She tried to start the car, but the engine would not turn over. This was a brand new car. There was no reason why it shouldn't start. We were scared and both panicking. She tried several times to start the car, and the whole while the dogs barked and growled and circled us. We both looked down at the key switch and controls and then back out the windows. The dogs were gone. We searched all around us, just looking for them. They were just gone. She tried the car again, and it started and ran with absolutely no problems. We got the hell out of there as fast as we could. It's not the only creepy thing we've come across, but definitely the experience that stands out as being the scariest. We went out looking for something, and boy did we find it. Be careful what you go looking for. You just might find it.
Into Exist by Anonymous Shans. So this isn't a long story, but it probably happened around elementary school or middle school. So around this time, me and my friends were eating lunch in the cafeteria, telling our crazy experiences. I really highly doubt we were actually telling the truth. We were probably just trying to look cool at the moment. I'm not going to say their names for personal reasons, but A was telling us how he had seen a red-faced demon at his grandmother's house, and B laughed, and she told him that demon is from a movie called Insidious. So they were going back and forth about it, whether or not it was. C also said that they saw something like that, but it wasn't exactly red, but a 10-tone long thing. So we just kept going on about our stories. Later that night, while I was taking out the garbage, I looked across the street and I thought I was seeing things, but I saw big black feet. The feet didn't seem to have shoes on. I thought it was my neighbor trying to scare me, so I taunted him about it. Whatever I did seemed to anger the thing, and the feet started to move quickly. I tried to walk fast, not turning my back on it, and I tripped. The feet vanished. A strong wind hit my face, and I ran into the house. Thinking about it now, us lying and speaking whatever into existence, it probably came after me. And B told me that demon is from a call called Insidious. So this is a story my friend told me, so I don't have perfect detail. For some background knowledge, he's 15-year-old to this day, and back then he was only 10 when the incident happened. This incident took place in Missouri. He said that this is by far the creepiest thing he has ever seen in his whole life, and was sure of it. Let's begin. It was a while ago, back in 2017, when he was hunting with his grandfather. They were out in the woods around 9 p.m. He had his BB gun with him in case they spotted a deer. He walked around a good amount of time, and then he smelled this horrid scent. Something was horribly stinky. He described it as if a skunk spray, but multiple times worse. He wondered what it was and followed the scent, but he couldn't find the source of it. This deeply concerned him, wondering what it came from. Then the scent got stronger and stronger until it was impossibly bad. Then the scent just simply evaporated. He then noticed with his grandfather, everything went completely silent. There wasn't a single sound to be heard. That's when it hit him. He knew that complete silence in the wilderness means there's a big predator nearby. He wandered around when out of the corner of his eye he saw something big shift quickly. He told his grandfather, but he didn't believe him and thought he was hallucinating. But my friend knew it was not a hallucination. From then on, they kept walking around trying to find a deer. When they both saw something huge pass by fast, and his grandfather had a remarkable look on his face. It was the face of true terror, because he knew what that was. But his grandfather knew that it would be too much for my friend, so he just told him that it was an overgrown deer, not trying to scare him. Now, they were close to the very middle of the woods when they heard this horrible screech. He described it to me to be like an elk and a woman's scream combined to create this sound. He then sworn that he saw this big, very pale creature with antlers on its head, with little fur patches, and it was mainly skin. That was all he could make out before it ran away quicker than anything he'd ever seen in his whole life. From that point forward, he was running home, but his grandfather couldn't easily catch up. They both escaped in the end, but they knew what they had encountered. He also said he could have sworn it stared at him as he stared at it. He said it had reddish orange eyes glowing in the moonlight. He said he thought it was a wendigo, and so did his grandfather. They both now know not to venture into the woods that late at night. My friend also said that he had seen it once more in a bush in front of his house, and it made this weird look at him and ran right off into the trees, looked back at my friend, and then continued off into the woods. Thank you so much for reading this story, as it took a while to write out. I hope you enjoy this story as much as it freaked me out. I am a 32-year-old male, married, and I have 2 children. This encounter happened in mid-August of 2022. My wife was tending to our newborn daughter while my son and I were sitting on the front porch of our house. It was about sunset, and my son Brandon and I were watching the sunset over our property.
It was about 8:55 p.m. when Brandon and I were looking at the stars that lit the night sky, and Brandon says, "That smell is terrible." I was about to ask him what smell, but then I smelled it too. It smelled like rotten eggs and a dead person combined, if that makes sense. Then Brandon and I hear this blood-cold howl, the howl so loud that my wife came out, and she came out about 2 feet from where I was standing, and she froze. And she said, "Oh my God, what is that?" I look in my wife's direction and I see it too, but before I could do anything, Brandon screams and runs into the house. Standing before my wife and I was a 7-foot tall, half-man, half-wolf beast. It stood on its hind legs and looked at us. Its eyes were glowing yellow and it was covered in brown fur. It howled right at my wife, and she looked at me and took off into the night. I look at my wife and say, "What was that?" My wife looks at me and said, "It looked like a werewolf." I believe that my wife is right. What we saw that night was a werewolf. I haven't seen it since that mid-August night, but if I ever do see it again, I will put a bullet in it.